Hey
Welcome
guys,
to Greenway.
welcome to
What?
Greenway Audio Magazine. I'm your host, Tim Pickett, and today joining me is my little buddy, Brandon. Brandon!
It's me.
Hey! You see what we did there? We mixed it up on you, you
Switcheroo.
crazy guys. So what's happening today is me and Tim going to talk a little bit about some new numbers, data, things like that. We're also going to talk a little bit about some of the packaging regulations and recalls and how those things happen. And our guest today is going to be Jonathan Milo from Vibe, who, in my opinion, has created some of the most iconic artwork and social campaigns in the Missouri cannabis and really in any cannabis space for a brand. So we'll dive a little bit into that. And right now, I think we've got somebody to tell you a little bit about some of our favorite products. So, Tim?
Good Taste Edibles has something wild dropping soon, and you're gonna want to be ready for it. They took their fan favorite Funfetti Crispy, you know the one that tastes like a party, and they leveled it all the way up. Coming soon, the Fruit Fetty 1000 milligram Mega Dosed Crispy. Same sweet, fruity, marshmallowy goodness, but now with a ridiculous 1,000 milligrams of THC. This isn't background edible energy. This is main character energy. Perfect for high tolerance folks or sharing with the crew. Just don't say we didn't warn you. Keep your eyes peeled. Fruit Fetty Mega Crispies are dropping soon.
Welcome back to Greenway Audio Magazine. I am Tim, and with me is Brandon, my buddy.
That's
Brandon.
me.
I got some cool 420 sales data that I didn't want to tell you about ahead of time because I wanted to surprise you, but you might not be surprised because your brain is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this industry. But can I ask you this question, buddy?
You can, and I like that your idea is like of fun for me is, hey, you know how you have a traumatic brain injury and you like to be prepared for everything? Let me throw data at you that you've never heard of before.
You've been
Thanks,
spot
buddy.
on every
Thanks,
time
buddy.
I put you on the spot, buddy. We have a new champion. A certain product category became the most in-demand product category during the 420 weekend.
Is it
This
infused
past year.
pre-rolls?
Yeah.
Called it. I will say this. One, that category is explosively
I know.
growing.
I know.
Two, we've talked so much about it
I know.
over the last few months. And three,
It happened.
it's exactly what you and I talked about whenever you were having me break it down for people who don't understand what an infused pre-roll is. I think that the way that we described it, the way we talked about it, is exactly why it's so explosive. You get all the flavor and the ritual of a traditional joint, and then you get all the extra of dabbing or, vaping. And I think people just really enjoy that. And we've got so many good versions of it right now too.
I know. So they, pre-rolls was 25.9%. Flower, 23.6%. So flower.
Pre-rolls, not necessarily infused pre-rolls.
But one would assume that is that category because we've seen the explosion of the infused type. I feel like that's
I think it's also just pre-rolls in general. I think it's a convenience factor.
I think it is too, especially if you're partying on 420. Everybody's going in and buying a bunch of these.
Well, and we're getting more and more people who. I went like this in a recent episode, and somebody literally stopped me, and they're like, "I did not know you had hair."
You have a beautiful head of hair.
um, yeah, sorry, I sidetracked.
No.
But it's we have so many more consumers now that are used to convenience
Yeah.
than they are breaking things down and rolling your. It's the same reason that Marlboro is more popular than chewing tobacco or roll your own tobacco and stuff. At one point everybody did it that way, but it becomes more and more popular, and it's all about convenience.
Yep.
DoorDash, Instacart, like our entire society is built to be as convenient and easy as possible, for the greatest number of people.
Absolutely. That's what everybody's looking for.
Pre-roll champion
Pre-roll champion.
2025.
Yep. And just to review this data here, 420 sales, cannabis sales data. This is from FlowHub, by the way. I want to give them credit because
Shout out FlowHub.
Average 420 weekend revenue rose 2.2% year over year and 48.3% over a typical weekend in 2025. I mean, that makes sense. Everybody's looking for deals.
Absolutely. And you and I have been
I know.
having this discussion
Yes,
for
we
a
have.
while now. Year over year, Missouri numbers show that my thing froze. Year over year, Missouri numbers show that March outperforms April, because once we get into deal hunting mode, people stay in deal hunting mode.
Yes.
And so the numbers will probably be a little bit less in May than what we've what we would like them to be. Missouri had another great month though. We went down from March.
Tell me about it.
Outperformed we went down from March a little bit. We outperformed last April pretty substantially.
Okay.
We 125 million, which is down slightly from March.
Okay. Slight.
But is up almost 5% from last April. Last April we did about 120 million in revenue at retail, and this year we did 125.
Okay.
On top of that, the cool thing you and I have started focusing on and trying to get more people to focus on, daily sales averages, month to month increases from year over year and things like that. January, 3.96 million in 2025 daily sales average, 4.15 million in February, 4.22 million in March, 4.20 420 in April. And here's the thing, it went down, but it went down about $20,000 a day on average. It didn't drop a ton. It dropped a little bit spread across every day. And that's a less significant drop than we saw last year. And it's in line with everything that we always see going from March to April in Missouri. And on top of it, we're still about 6% total for annual sales so far over where we were in 2024. Annual sales so far this year have hit 495 million. And last year in April, we were at 467 million.
Oh.
So we're up about $30 million so far. Yeah. And
Wow.
I think that everything points to this is not a blip. We month over month, January 2025 outperformed January 2024. February outperformed February. March outperformed March. April outperformed April. I think we're just, gonna be 6 to 10% better across the board than we were last year.
All right. Well then, Brandon, let's put a line in the sand. We need to retire a phrase that we keep hearing.
We did. We discussed this in a recent meeting. One of the things that we've always said is fastest growing. Missouri is one of the fastest growing states in the U.S. And based on the performance of what we've done the last few years since the launch of adult use and how we see other markets going compared to us, we are retiring the phrase at Greenway, fastest growing, and we are now replacing it with strongest performing. So Missouri's marijuana program has now surpassed $3.9 billion in cumulative sales since its inception, further cementing its place as one of the strongest performing adult use markets in the Midwest. I just realized how far away my microphone was
I still heard you
because I was
perfect.
typing. So I will reiterate, strongest performing, one of the strongest performing markets in the country at this point.
Yep.
Just really showing our what for at this point.
Bye-bye, fastest growing.
Bye fastest growing.
Bye-bye.
Hello Beastie Boys. That shirt's fantastic.
Oh, thank you, buddy. I love the shirt. We should have Jonathan Milo joining us shortly. I know of Vibe. I enjoy their products. I know they are a fan favorite. I know that consumers love them. I know that underground dudes and gals love them as well. So I'm actually really interested to hear it from the mouth of the Vibe Cannabis founder and CEO. So I'm really looking forward to this because I am going to sit here as a student and take notes because I want to learn more about the world of Vibe. On top of the fact that they have some of the coolest stickers. Can I just say that real quick? The coolest stickers I've found in Missouri cannabis have come from Vibe.
I love the way that they do their merchandising. And they create all kinds of cool things that are related to the cannabis world, but are separate because they're doing it as merch.
Smart.
And one of my favorite things is their poster series.
Yes.
I've gotten some of those as gifts from people at the facility and stuff like that. And they're just awesome.
Yeah.
Their strain art series, and you talked about one of the things that endears them to the community is to old heads and stuff like that. Well, one of the reasons is because they have, sorry, I get the hiccups every time I start talking a lot. They have one of the most well-known traditional market cultivators helping to bring in genetics and run custom genetics that he's created in the form of Jay Wills from Tree 14. And we did an article a couple years ago about that, but Vibes, some of their most popular cultivars and genetics that they're running are Jay's genetics. They're St. Louis bred, St. Louis grown stuff that's been around in some cases for 20 years or more. Cuties is relatively new. But Cuties is Jay's. It's named because whenever he had COVID-19 back in the days of the pandemic, that was the only thing he could smell was Cuties, the little oranges. And this cultivar were the only two things he could smell.
Okay.
Yeah. RKO, little inside baseball. I don't know that they'll ever get the signed, sealed seal of approval from WWE to run with that or anything. But, there's a reason that it's called RKO, and there's a dude in St. Louis that just recently came back to St. Louis for WWE Backlash and took on the GOAT John Cena for the title. Little guy named Randy Orton.
Whoa.
That's where the name RKO comes from.
Did not know that.
Mississippi Nights.
Oh,
That cultivar is incredible. Jay, just in my opinion, is a very, very talented dude, and one of my favorite things was him taking the time to explain to not only me, but to people in general, that for as much as people shit on corporate weed, this is a guy who's literally been growing in the traditional market for decades, telling you that the stuff he's producing there for Vibe is the terminology he used was Olympic level. and what he meant was, during one of our interviews, he said, I've thrown away more plants at Vibe than I ever have in my life, and I've thrown away plants I would have run at my house or in my grow, because they can't do what they need to do. They're not strong enough. They're not hardy enough to produce on that level. And so the insight from a traditional market grower to, how that scale and how that comparison was really insightful for me.
Yeah.
And I hope other people learn from that too. Good. So love Vibe, love the way that they integrate with the culture. I'm excited to talk to Jonathan Milo.
Let's get him in here, shall we?
That sounds great. Let's do it.
Looking for award-winning cannabis in Missouri? Vivid's Florida Kush isn't just popular, it's a champion. Winner of the Major Cannabis Cup, #1 selling flower on LeafLink's 2024 list, and back-to-back Greenway People's Choice Awards for Best Cultivar and Best Product in 2025. With bold terpenes, clean cultivation, and consistent quality, Vivid sets the standard. Find Florida Kush at a dispensary near you and experience the hype for yourself. Visit vividcannabis.com to learn more. Welcome back to Greenway Audio Magazine. We are here with Jonathan Milo, Vibe Cannabis founder and CEO. Thank you for joining us, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are really looking forward to this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Skeletor aficionado.
Yeah. I like goofy comic villains, so that's he's one of them.
I love the wall thing you have going back there.
Yeah, no, that's actually one of my employees spray painted that on our wall back here in our.
Oh, that's spray painted.
Yeah,
okay.
it's spray painted by one of our head leaders for rosin extraction. So Hayden did a pretty good job with that. So I kind of give my team creative freedom to do things that they want as long as they behave appropriately.
Yeah, got it.
Speaking of creative freedom and behaving appropriately, one of my favorite things about Vibe has always been the approach that you guys take to merchandising and what I would call traditional guerrilla marketing, which is to make things that are reminiscent of old school marketing and cool, which is like posters and hats and t-shirts, and you guys always have the coolest posters, the coolest flash art and stuff like that.
Stickers.
You guys always have these really cool limited edition hats and stuff that you give out as gifts every couple years. And I've been a really big fan. Tim's said repeatedly that Vibe has the best stickers in the Missouri cannabis industry, but I'm just a big fan of a lot of the things you guys do, especially whenever you were first partnering with Jay Wills. You launched another set of art around each of the cultivars in particular to the launch, and the Mississippi Nights poster and the RKO poster are two of my favorite pieces of art, generally speaking, for any kind of advertisement, but especially for cannabis.
Yeah, no, it's been interesting. The funny thing with Vibe is we don't necessarily have an entire marketing team. Kind of how the marketing team evolved here was a lot of the ideas and concepts kind of originate with me. I'm actively involved in the strain arts and the designs, and then I work with an illustrator we have. But what was great is I knew a lot of my talent and my team here. We had 100 employees at the time. They have a lot of creative talent, and a lot of the talent that's in the cannabis industry are very artistic, and they come from social media as well as the cannabis culture and passion. And so we were able to identify some people who had that passion, that talent, and help work on some of these projects and ideas. And naturally, over time, a lot of these folks started in entry-level jobs, either the grower, trimming, or extraction. And eventually, we've got a chance to raise them up and train and work with them, maximize their potential into a career opportunity. So going from a basic entry-level job all the way to, our marketing manager, she started as a temp, when we first started. Our other project marketing manager, he started in cultivation, and now he does all the designs and artwork and social media posts. So there's just endless stories of our employees starting from entry level positions, and then we had a chance to elevate them into respective departments. Marketing was a key one. We really only still have a team of about two and a half, myself included. And we really put the passion and the detail in behind what we think really looks cool, what we really relate to. I'm a '90s kid, so a lot of my inspirations or passions are centered around kind of the '90s and kind of growing up and things like that, which a lot of cannabis consumers and patients can resonate with. But more importantly, with brands in cannabis space in general, a lot of folks will make a brand that is important to them or has meaning to the individuals who maybe started that brand, or it's a made up word for some reason. And then you try to get traction on that made up word. Really, when we had started Vibe was always envisioned to be for the patient or the consumer. It was a brand for them. And we try to represent that through the artwork and the apparel, things they would want to wear. And generally, the apparel that we kind of make, really my baseline is I don't make anything I don't wear. So it has to be high quality, it has to be a cool design, because there is a culture and an art and a music and a tattoo aspect to cannabis that resonates both with our employees as well as our patients. So it's kind of, marketing for us has been a lot of fun, but it just is kind of tailored to who we are. So it makes it a little bit more authentic. And so we just try to focus on what we really like, and then we just put it out there. And that's the thing with marketing. My favorite saying is, everybody in marketing has an opinion and nobody's right, because it's always on the eye of the beholder, right? In that perspective.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. It makes sense.
It's tricky. Yeah.
So product wise, let's just talk about the products you guys have. You have flour. Obviously, everybody knows about Vibe flour.
Yep.
Pre-rolls, hash holes. You got the live resin concentrates, which everyone talks about. Solventless concentrates, vape carts, and disposables.
Yep.
Have you noticed with that product line? I mean, I know Brandon and myself have been talking about products, categories that have been kind of, going upwards. Have you noticed anything in your product line that maybe was a surprise to you that, we didn't focus too much on that, but all of a sudden that is something that's kind of like shooting up our own charts?
Yeah. So I'd say Vibe's history is a little bit interesting because it's backwards. So what's custom is when grows get set up, they immediately focus on flower because that's the first product to get to market. It is the largest product category of all the categories. In the market today, it makes up about 49% of the market. It feels like more, but purchased flower in jars or bags, that's about 39, maybe 40% of the market. Pre-rolls is a SKU that's taking off in Missouri, as well as just in the industry in general. And I'd say that market's about 7 to 10%. So when you can kind of combine those two together and call them flower, that's about half the market. Vape here is very popular relative to other states. I think that's because folks are adopting cannabis. They want to do it more discreetly. So generally in other states, you see vape is 15 to 20%. Here, it's more like 25 to 27. That's a lot because it's taking it from other categories, right? Concentrates is about 7 to 9%. And then edibles is kind of making up the delta, call it 15%, which is primarily focused on gummies. What I mean by Vibe being backwards is usually what you see is folks come out with flower, then they come out with a distillate line, sometimes cured concentrates, but I think this market jumped to live resin faster just because there was more product availability, and it was it was easier to get access to make. And then eventually over time, some folks may get into the upper tier of higher quality rosin or resins, maybe start focusing on rosin in the future. Usually rosin is a mature endpoint of what a market will look like. So your Californias and your Colorados, they're further along in their history, so they got to kind of rosin and solventless faster. When Vibe came out, we didn't go the flower distillate cured live resin route. We went flower quality, focus immediately on live rosin. It was important to us because we thought that philosophy, that hash and that solventless was the pinnacle product of the cannabis plant. It's arguably the cannabis plant, we look at it as like a cow, and to respect the plant, you have to harvest each part of it to get the value out of the cow. So the rosin is like the filet mignon steak, right? So you can also make a resin that's very similar to that filet mignon steak, or it may be considered a ribeye piece, right? Distillate can kind of be considered the hamburger, but still has value, right? Flour also in itself can be a different part of the cow. So if you're able to respect the plant and harvest it optimally, you can get all the pieces out of the cow and provide the consumers with the different cuts of the cannabis plant that they consume or prefer. So with Vibe, we focused on rosin because I knew it was a 3-year plan. It would take us 3 years to get to where we want to be. And it was important for us to start faster to get the process dialed in, but more importantly, the genetics in line. Because you can be a good extractor, but you're only going to get out what your product genetics and your quality is. So we started on that, and what we've seen is we were able to get rosin quality better faster, and then work backwards by, okay, now we're going to offer a live resin. And the Vibe brand, because we were popular with the rosin and the flower, people would take a risk on buying our live resin and assume it was quality because we had the good flower material to input it. We had a good extraction with rosin, and we had a great extractor in Rob, who joined us as well, to carry that. So people were willing to give it a try and realize, hey, this is good quality. Now we're slowly working backwards to where we've had an issue, if you guys know, with inversion from some states and the states product recalling, and it's impacting the consumer in terms of what they're able to buy, what's recalled. Distillate supplies going up and down constantly. There's a shortage, there's oversupply. So we entered the distillate part of the market because we had part of that cow that was a byproduct, but there was also a need in the market to where the consumers, we could warranty, like, we know this is distillate that will not get recalled. It came from Vibe. You can have confidence that you can buy this distillate cart, and we warranty it, it won't be on a product recall list. So we could offer that and see that kind of take off a little bit. On the gummies side of things, there's really not much supply of rosin gummies in the market. And again, it's that part of the cow where you have a portion of it that you can offer rosin gummies to. We are trying to scale those. I think the biggest challenge we have is you can't just turn on production fast overnight in distributions. It's a phased approach. You got to produce it, have the supply, then get folks comfortable with it, get dispensaries comfortable with it, play the game of making sure you're not eating in too many other partnership sales and things like that. And then lastly, joints. I think joints is, especially the infused category, it's still in its infancy here. And so I don't think groups have figured out exactly what's an efficient joint, what's a good infused joint. Is it a jeter? Is it just infused in the middle? Is it distillate? Is it coated? So I think that market's still kind of wide open. There's really only 1 or 2 players who do it well at a large scale. So it's kind of these niche areas, at least for Vibe, where it's the distillate, the gummies, solventless gummies, I should say, and the joints, where you would think we would start with that, but no, really, that's our endpoint, because we went for the craft, the solution that was more important to us, at least initially at the beginning.
Interesting.
While we've got him talking about infused pre-rolls, I would like to point out that Vibe's version of infused pre-roll is the equivalent of a cigar. Yes. compared to a Virginia Slim.
Yeah,
I wish I would have grabbed the one I have sitting upstairs right now. Vibes Hash Hole was one of the first, I believe, if not the very first, was one of the first infused pre-rolls in the state, and was the earliest adoption of a true hash hole in the state, I believe.
Yeah.
I know there's a couple other companies that were pretty close in time, and, you know, depending on which part of the state, you may have seen something from someone else pop up before that. But the first Vibe hash hole that came out was the first in the state, I believe. And I've talked to Tim before about the experience of an infused pre-roll as opposed to a traditional pre-roll. And one of the things that we've talked about is you get all the ritual of smoking a joint. You get all the vibe and experience of smoking traditional flower, but then you get the feeling and the efficacy that comes along with dabbing or vaping. Especially if it's a live resin or rosin vape as opposed to a distillate vape, depending on how, your pre-rolls manufactured, because there's some keef and distillate pre-rolls out there which are going to be more similar. Now, take all of those things that we've discussed and take Vibe, who at the point that they launched the hash hole was... I would say probably top 3 or 4 in the state as far as recognizability for concentrates. I would say that Vivid, Vibe, Head Change, and I'm sure I'm missing someone else, but
Teal's in there. Amaze has done a good job.
Teal.
Illicit, yeah.
Yep. Amaze wasn't there yet at that time, though,
True.
because their flower was still being manufactured by other people. So at the time, you've got Teal, Vivid, Vibe, Head Change are kind of the top flight of that, and then Vibe has created this really positive reputation for their flower. And so you have a company that's considered top flight flower and top flight concentrates, and now you get to experience both of those things at one time in something that's as big around as a baby's leg.
Yeah. It will push you out like a baby too if you try to smoke the whole thing.
and so not only that, but then by creating the hash hole, it was another level of guerrilla marketing, because what happened was you had to share it with your friends.
True, yeah.
You had to take this, monstrosity of wonder with you and invite 4 or 5 people to share an hour or 2 of their time with you. Because once they started smoking it, they weren't going anywhere else for a little while. And so you would sit down with your group, and one of the beauties was that it didn't, even in the earliest iteration, it didn't really canoe, it didn't really funnel out or anything like that. It burned pretty evenly, especially if you had any experience with it. And that was most people's introduction to any kind of infused flower in Missouri. And I think, as both a consumer and someone who, participates in the industry, I think that's the best possible introduction that most people could have had to infused flower, is to have that experience. Because what happened most of the time was somebody that knew what they were doing had gone out, had procured the product, and they brought it to their group and they said, look, this is my favorite flower combined with my favorite concentrate. I want you guys to try this. Sit back, strap on the belt buckle, let's order some sandwiches and pizza, because we're going to get heavy for a little bit. And they would, much in the same way we've talked about, one of my favorite brand ambassadors being Brittany Dunn from Teal. Everybody that was the first person in the state with that Vibe hash hole was your Sherpa. They were bringing you along, and they were gifting you this experience. And I really think that if for no other reason than that, Vibe should go down as legendary status in the Missouri cannabis market, because they brought everybody an educational experience of quality right out of the gate.
Yeah,
So
that's an interesting story, but in between the walls of Vibe here. So how that actually started was Adam Weidman was an employee with us, kind of started an entry level in cultivation, and he had this passion and skill to know how to roll high quality hash roll joints. And so he brought this idea to me, showed me. I was familiar with hash rolls, but not at the commercial scale and how it could kind of be done. And so we started out at a micro level, was primarily Adam, and then he had two rollers as well who worked at the grow to roll these hash rolls. Every single one is hand rolled. So it's like we prep the materials and we roll them. A person can roll generally 30 to 60 a day, if depending on how good they are, how fast they are. But obviously you have to maintain quality control. So that happened around the summer of 2023. Don't forget, this is in the middle of rec just starting. So product shortages everywhere. People don't really have a need to be innovative. Everything's selling out, right? They're just scraping for stuff. So we were focused on, okay, yeah, like we need to keep innovating to give the patients what they want, or start making things they know they don't want yet. And so Adam had this passion, and one of the great things with Vibe is we try to work with folks who have a traditional market background, but let them keep their identities. And so Adam's identity outside of Vibe is shaman. Shaman rolls is his thing. So he had, experience doing these. And I market shaman rolls just as much as we market Vibe, right? Because he works for us, but he has his own identity as a person, and as well as in the cannabis community. Same thing with Jay and Tree 14. Same thing with Rob and Free Love Fico, right? So like Free Love Genetics. So Adam had this passion for it. We did a lot of R&D on it, because it's not cheap to make and it's not cheap to buy. And so overall with that is what I would say is, sorry, I lost a little bit of light here. He had this solution, and we R&D'd it, and we only dropped it probably in September of 2023 at a short period of time. There was a window about 30 days, because then in October we were still figuring out the R&D to make sure it wasn't packed too tight or wouldn't burn uneven. And so I froze production in October through February and said, hey, look, we released on the market. It got immediate great reception. We could have kept going with it, but I was terrified for the consumer, because that was an expensive product. If it didn't burn the right way, you lost them immediately, because your first impression is so important. So, and when you roll something like that and you market it and people pay for it, it has to be perfect, right? Otherwise, that's no different than if I went to, again, I use steak as an example. If I went to a steakhouse and paid $50 for a steak and it was not good, I am not going back to that restaurant. So we froze production on it, did more R&D, and it actually got down to where I was calculating cubic volume for him, because we had an actual issue where they were a little too short and they were packed too tight. And I said, hey, mathematically, there isn't the proper airflow for these to burn the right way. And so I said, your measurements have to be, I think it was like, I remember maybe like 55 millimeters. We actually got down to the millimeter on how to do this. And then we relaunched it in February 2024. And I don't even think we've had a complaint since, right? We roll thousands of these a month. And so the quality in the R&D and the QC has to be there, not only with the product quality. And that team has done an amazing job to where, it is a popular product. It's very expensive for us to make, but I believe in what the patients really want, what they relate to, so much so that we've expanded to try to make it centered around more kind of exclusive drops. So we make these aficionado cigar boxes, what I call them. So I have to give credit to Doug Gallant from Leaf Resources, because he's a cigar smoker as I am. And he said, hey, look, your hash rolls are great, and it would be really cool if you did something with like a fancy cigar box. And I was like, well, it's a challenge because it's so expensive to make. And the consumer, I always thought, well, how can the consumer acquire this, or the patient? Because cannabis is not cheap. It's not cheap to grow. And as a wholesaler, we really make half of generally what the retail margin is. So, competing with the black market, it's not really the same. In the black market, you could buy a hash roll for 50 to 60, 70 bucks. Right? Vibe doesn't make 50, 60, 70 bucks. We make about 25. So, and they don't have compliance costs or labor and all those things. So we really are the cheapest in the market. It's really expensive for us. And so I kept thinking, well, how can we make something amazing and memorable and collectible for the patient, and still be able to offer some sort of variety pack? And so in December and around 420, we started making these kind of 4 packs and 5 packs, and we called them the aficionado vibe line because that's resonates with the cigar. The box comes with a cigar cutter for in between smokes, a custom Zippo lighter, and we're going to do those drops quarterly, but they're going to be limited. Vibe takes a substantial loss on every box, but it matters to us that patients have something that is cool they can collect, be proud of. I have our team sign the boxes because they put their name on it. It's a sign of that they're proud to put their name on it. And on the patient side, they have a touch or they feel connected to where, okay, hey, this important person at Vibe or this team from Vibe, they took their time to sign this to kind of dedicate this product to the person who's purchasing it. And so that product line, I have the most fun with. And I think it's very important overall to marketing. It's one of those product SKUs that I think is important. We may not make money on it or a whole lot, but that's not what it's for. It's for to give the patients something that they can appreciate from the Infused line, as well as something that's memorable from the Vibe standpoint. I always tell my team, usually we got to work on 90% of the things we do, we got to work on that we don't like to do the 10% that we really love, right? So really, that 10 or 5% in designing those hash hole boxes and figuring out how to evolve, that's part of my job that I really look forward to. And so we plan to drop those again quarterly. Next one coming up 7/10, and it will still have that kind of personalized touch. But that's a good example of a product where you can't immediately measure monetary benefits, or if you can, it may not make financial sense, but it's important for branding, right? And it can come off as a benefactor benefit just by making something that you love and appreciate. And so I do think that hash hole impacts the halo effect of the rest of our products. Oh, there's Vibe flower in there. I do think Vibe flower, oh, buy this, oh, rosin's in there. Let me try that concentrate or that vape. And so, again, I think that becomes a key piece of the market, and we're trying to find ways to scale it and kind of make it more affordable as well.
I have a question. I'm more on the gummy side, and I was thrilled to see your little partnership with Smokies to do the. I get the blueberry lemonade solventless. My question for you is: I love solventless gummies. The opportunity to buy them is very small. There not a lot of people do it.
Yeah.
What is the reasoning behind it? Just as somebody who's curious, is it too expensive? Is it hard to do? Like, why aren't there more options that are solventless?
So usually solventless, it's really a primary factor is there's not enough supply of rosin in the market. So you need the rosin as the active ingredient. And since you have limited producers of rosin, there's just not the active ingredient to create them. And so so on the Smokies standpoint, they have another line called Spinello's in another state. I think they're introducing it here. That's usually
they're bringing it. Jamie Dickinson was shouting it out on his Facebook earlier last week. So,
and I think that's usually their primary line for rosin. But like anything, you got to have the active supply. There's not a real active market. There's not enough supply of rosin, let alone a trading market to buy bulk rosin. And I think, and also at the price that they're willing to pay or can afford, it may not make economical sense for that wholesaler to do that because they either didn't focus on the process or genetics or rosin or extraction efficiency, because rosin extraction is not as easy as it may sound. It's very delicate. You have to grow the right genetics, grow the right yields, handle it well, less touch points, extract it well, press it well. So dialing in every one of those steps where it can impact your yield accordingly to make it viable is very difficult to do. The short answer to your question is just there's not the supply. With us, we do plan to scale that up to focus on, having that active product. Whether Smoky scales that up as well through us and maybe some other partners as well, I think it's just very niche-y. It's a very limited market. I do think in time it will change. I do think generally the market will move towards more solventless products, but that's a natural evolution like any market. I think as it starts to get more competitive, which it's starting to now, you'll start to see that to be innovative. So the reasons why California and Colorado, I use them as an example, why they have these upper echelon products is because it got ultra competitive. And so they had to innovate to survive. We don't exactly have that here yet at Missouri. And so there's not a need to immediately innovate unless the group either believes in that product or they see that as an opportunity as well. Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
I will say to the innovation part of what you were just mentioning, that actually brings me into the next thing I wanted to ask about. But we have a pretty diverse group of manufacturers. You know, when you look at retail and you look at cultivation, there's been significant market consolidation and constriction over the last few years.
Yep.
But in the middle of that, we have this huge, wide open manufacturing space. And in that manufacturing space, we also have some really, really talented companies and extractors. The team at Curador, the guys over at Monopoly Melts, C4 has, you know, started doing bubble hash, and you mentioned Amaze. I think Vivid has significantly established themselves as a key component to that as well. Vibe obviously has won multiple awards for the things you guys have done, both from Greenway and other places. But you guys also tend to partner with some of these what people would consider competitors or you know, peers, and it seems like as much as we don't necessarily have the need for it, we do have the competitive you know, craving for not necessarily like let's throw them under the bus, but let's elevate our game and let's work with them and let's partner with them and let's do some cross branding stuff. One of the most popular products, speaking of hash holes, was a collaboration between Vibe and Vivid last year.
So that one was, I think that one was illicit Monopoly Melts. But yeah, Vibe and Vivid haven't had a chance to work together on that. We do have some upcoming with some groups. I think there's been a collab with.
Oh, you're right. My bad.
That's okay.
That was.
I think Since and Head Change have had some work done, as well as Good Day Farm and Head Change. Vibe is working with some groups to a short list as well to actually have collabs here soon. So I think that's forthcoming.
Have you guys not done any collabs to this point?
So we did the Smokies one. I think we have tried with groups. I think it's just a matter of getting everybody's schedules aligned, both from a hash hole standpoint as well as from a concentrate standpoint, right? So I've kind of pitched the idea to some groups as, hey, let's do more of a blind box of, hey, I'll extract your flower, you extract mine, and then I'll extract mine and you extract yours. Let's blind box and see what the patient thinks, right? In terms of giving them an unbiased take on all these great concentrates, because we do have a lot of talented and skilled extractors in this state, right? Head Change actually shares a wall with us. They're on the other side of this wall, right? Ironically, right? So there's something about the 63147 out here where we love our concentrates and extract them well, right? So Head Change, Teal has got roots here in St. Louis as well with Adolphus and his team. Vivid, their roots are in concentrates, right? They started out primarily Boston and Montana as a lab, and then eventually acquired the grow from strain. So their foundation was in concentrates. The other groups that you mentioned with local illicit, Amaze, how they've evolved over time. I think now that everybody's kind of catching up to each other's skill set and has quality inputs, you'll probably start to see collabs start to happen a little bit more. Whereas before, there's a little bit of a wider gap in the horse race, I guess you could call. And so I think the patients want to see groups they like work together, right? And I'll be honest, look, like we can't grow for the entire state. I can't extract for the entire state. There's so much supply that's needed. So it's kind of like we can all work together and we can support each other's company and our employees and each other's products. We don't have to be it's only us versus you type mentality, because at the end of the day, I'm trying to make sure patients and consumers have access to what they want at a reasonable price and good quality. And that can come in many groups, form, or function. So I do think you'll start to see more of the collabs coming soon. I think one that we've been a part of regularly which I think the program has been great and amazing, is the Cannabis Cult. That program has brought every brand together, right?
Agreed.
Under most brands have participated in that. A lot of that folks want to see, and they've removed the bias as much as you can from identifying who's who. And I do think their results have been accurate. Like, who should have won those contests should have won, right? And I say that when, we've lost a number of competitions, or we've tied and we've won some. But I always think the patients got it right. The last rosin competition was nearly a 3-way tie between Monopoly Melts, us, and Amaze, right?
Right.
And a champion was crowned, but it was kind of like concentrates. You can see it in the ratings, right? Concentrates are ultra competitive. Those gaps are really tight between competitors, and they're always rated relatively high. A good rating on flower or concentrate is an 8 to a 9. Look, it's hard to get 9 and 10s on everything, right? I just relate it to IMDb. If I want to watch a movie and I check IMDb, I'm looking for ratings 7.5 and above. If it's in an 8, 8.3, 8.5, that's a really good movie. Same thing that way. It's hard to get perfect 10s on everything. So I think that umbrella indirectly has brought people together, and then the patients get to participate in it. They get a good deal on stuff that people are trying to show as their best shot. And then they get to vote on it and tell everybody what they thought. And then, the people who participated could go back they can take that feedback and think, okay, I could grow this different. I could extract differently. They're telling you what they truly think. And so I think that program's been amazing, but I do think you'll start to see more groups work together, specifically with Vibe. I think the Smokies one started it, but we've been working with other groups to get other ones in motion, and we're all for it.
Did you guys do some dispensary, sound like my daughter now. Did you guys do some dispensary specific collaborations in the past?
Not yet. So I think there's been some things that have been, so the reason why it's hard to do it dispensary specific is because when you make a batch of product, let's just say it's 500 units, it is hard for one dispensary to sell only all those units by themselves, even if they have a lot of them, right? So I would say the one that we did that was key, and actually I think this was picked up in the Greenway Awards, right, for 2024. We work and support a lot with the STL Canamoms. So the STL Canamoms is a band of, I think it's like 5,000 members, which of course are female who are moms. And we've supported them for a long time. And so we actually made a rosin concentrate that we donated the proceeds that we've got, a good portion of it, to mothers in need. And so we came out with this rosin. It was called Milk Money. It was a strain collab with the founders of STL Canamoms. And we sold a lot of those units through Field State, who the STL Canamoms are associated with. We had so much of a batch, like they couldn't only sell all of those. Plus, we just wanted to let them know, say, hey, look, it's important for you to sell these through other parts of the state. Not everybody has access to St. Louis in this one dispo. It's important for folks to know who you are, and also shine a light on where you are here locally. And so we made this Milk Money strain. We made a poster for it. We signed a limited number, something you feel proud of. And it's still something that we hang our hat on, to where that was a great collab that we want to continue with in the future. And we can support the right cause and folks that were part of cannabis from day one. So
that collaboration wound up being nominated for a few different things in the Greenway Awards. And it seemed like that was a pretty significant launching point for that group as well. In the time between you guys collaborating and them being nominated and winning awards, they picked up some additional recognition and were featured on CNN and television news and things like that. Like they really kind of exploded their brand. And our whole thing with patients is always about normalization. We've had the discussion a few different times that destigmatization is probably mostly over. Are there still obstacles and bumps in the road and things like that? Yeah, but those are normalization obstacles as much as they are destigmatization.
Agreed.
And so to see this group get that much attention and that much positive reception, and be able to tie it back to, you know, really the root of it is a collaboration with you guys that kind of sparked the ball rolling, turning into the giant snowball headed down the hill to smash the Who Village.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think Kim and Jessica did an amazing job, and that is probably I can't say there's another group like that in the state of Missouri that has banded together. The energy is always great. They come together. It's centered around, you know, being a mom, being a parent, cannabis as a medicine as well. It's all the right things. In terms of the stigma still exists in Missouri a little bit, but I think the stigma is just really it's translated to and not understanding or lack of education, right? Once people understand cannabis in the community, then they're more natural. They evolve to it and they understand the benefits of that. And so I think that will change over time. Everybody on this podcast can agree 6 years ago, the culture in Missouri was completely different, right? Think of where we're at now. All that took was time and education. And so I think, yeah. So
especially with regard to parenting.
Yes. Yes.
I think that was the point I was trying to make with that was they're doing such a great job of really normalizing, cannabis use as a parent, and that this is no different, and probably better than, drinking a couple glasses of wine, 6-pack of beer, whatever it happens to be every evening whenever you get home to hang out with your kids.
Nope, exactly. I mean, it's therapeutic and medicinal, and, it serves the right purpose. So it's great.
Jonathan, if I can get into your brain a little bit here, it's obvious. I know you have a master's in accounting. I know you're a numbers guy. It's obvious you are very into marketing and branding. You do a lot of R&D.
Yep.
When you make these decisions to collaborate with somebody else, to launch a new product, to do a new marketing campaign, are you data first driven? Is it gut? Is it your experience in the industry? Is it a mixture of all of that? Like is there something that you kind of rely on first when you're making those types of decisions?
Yeah, I think it's always tricky because it's with Vibe, it's a little bit easier because a lot of the decisions just go through me and we can quickly decide. We don't have kind of layers of it's got to go through 20 people. It's, hey, does this kind of make sense logically? So we kind of look at collectively, or I also look at, okay, working with a group, what's their path like long-term in Missouri? Because our goal at Vibe is to stay Vibe and support the community for a long time. And so is the collab or working with something with another group, do they plan to kind of stay in Missouri kind of long-term and grow together with us, right? And then for the patients as well. And then the other component is interactions with how has people partnered with each other, both in the past and what do they want to work on in the future. And then is that a good relationship? Does it have potential? Because you're investing into a partner, right? You're investing into another brand. And also the work you do with them impacts your company, even if it's not directly tied to the collab, right? So if we work with Smokies and something went wrong on the Smokies side, our brand is attached to that, and vice versa. If we did something, it doesn't make Smokies look good, right? So do you have good character as a partner? Can we trust it kind of long-term going forward? Can we be creative with it? And does it fit an area of product that patients want, right? That we could work on? Could it be successful together? The other component with it is, I was going to mention, so can it be kind of creative collectively? And then can it work overall? That's something that we kind of decide along the way. But to be honest, we work with a lot of people. It's really hard for me not to say no to folks as long as they have good character, they want to work together. We do try to line up, quality in brands as well, because there are different tiers to some groups are considered a premium, some are kind of in the middle, some are kind of budget tier, and you kind of want to line those up to where the collab makes sense for that consumer. Otherwise, the consumer doesn't believe or will adopt it, right? So there is some that as well. And that doesn't mean it's for every single product. Certain products you can do it, and certain products you probably can't. It's what is the consumer going to kind of expect. But generally, we work with a lot of folks. Like there's really almost very few ideas I would kind of say no to, because it's like, hey, you want to work with us? Great. Let's work with you and let's try something out. I'm more of from an R&D standpoint, let's try it. Like we don't know until we try. We can hypothesize a lot, but until we try it and see what went well and what didn't, or maybe which direction to pivot from, you don't really know. But I am excited with some of the stuff that we have coming up with some groups, and I think it will show that groups are willing to work together and provide something to patients that again that they desire. So to answer your question, it's really we're pretty flexible and pretty open, and we just want to make sure we're working with trustworthy and good partners that are going to be there long term with us.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So just piggybacking on that, what are the future plans for Vibe? Can you
Yeah.
get into some of that?
So I think, ironically, again, I kind of say we do things a little bit backwards with Vibe, right?
Yeah.
So we've been happy with our N2 cans in the past, the nitrogen seal for Vibe. So, but I think we're trying to explore new options as well for a different packaging container that's going to cost us a lot more. It won't be passed down to the consumer, but we do think it enhances that product and that kind of consumption. And so we'll be dropping probably a new line of container that's, again, the only type in the United States. Nobody else has it. They developed the technology for us. The crazy thing is my packaging costs are going to go up a lot, but I'm okay with that because I do think it's innovative and it's what the patient wants. It does protect our quality of flower. The other component is new genetics. We're always working on genetics constantly. And so we have kind of this rotation of, okay, what's stable that I can buy time to get new and better genetics and rotate and get strains that folks kind of want overall. So you'll always see new drops with that coming with either pheno packs or things for people to try, in kind of first iteration drop boxes, whether we call it, the first initial bud offering or pheno pack or something like that. We'll figure out some sort of brand with it. So on the flower side, what you'll probably see is new genetics. The quality we expect to go up. We think we do a decent job with flower quality, but we can still do better in terms of manicuring it, making it appear a little bit more sexier, and then having it in the pristine jar to enhance that full experience. I don't think we've hit the peak of what our potential for flower is in terms of appearance and genetics. That just takes time, and I think we're starting to approach that, call it as we start our year 4, because we're only starting our 4th year of growing, right? We just completed about 3 years. On the manufacturing side, flower supply will kind of balance, but you'll see higher quality. But then we're looking at hitting those other categories of, okay, how do I make, a scaled more and infused pre-roll, like at a good price point. We think the bubble hash, the mixture of flour, call it mixed with ice water hash, homogenizes and makes a good, efficient infused pre-roll, in addition to the hash hole. So there's just that level kind of skew as well. The distillate carts I mentioned before, scaling the kind of gummies. So we're continuing to kind of innovate constantly through all peers, the genetics, the packaging, the quality of the appearance of things, the rosin concentrates. You can never have enough rotation there. Enhancing the different types of resin products. It's every single product category. And I think the challenge we have, again, is scaling those in certain departments, but that's usually just a function of time and resources and training. And I think the team is, I'm excited for our employees because that means they have more opportunities. I'm excited for the employees to be able to elevate to a manager and oversee a department, oversee a product line, right? Because my philosophy is if you figure out how to take care of the employees and pay them well, and they're happy and they're making great products, everything else usually takes care of itself. The product's good, if the sales are good, the patients are happy, owners are happy or investors are happy, that takes care of itself. So I think all those product lines, what you'll see is Vibe hitting each category and then trying to enhance the quality in every single product category. What you'll see with our prices is there won't be any price increases to any degree. If anything, we look to either stay or possibly drop them lower depending on our efficiency, if we can make it economical and cover costs and things like that. So a lot of exciting things to come.
Out of the different innovations and marketing ideas and product rollouts and things like that you've done over the last handful of years, what would you consider like your top 3 things that were most successful out of anything you've done? And what are like 2 or 3 of the things that you thought were going to be differently received than what they are?
Yeah. That's a tough question because it's kind of like, who's your favorite child, right? Like, so I love all my children,
mine's the
equally.
girl.
Yeah,
No, I'm just kidding.
I've got twin daughters, so yeah. So they're twins, so it's easy for me to say I love you identically, right? So for us, I think it's well received that Vibe extraction and concentrates and vapes and in hash holes are loved by the market. I think flower is so competitive, and you have groups who do it really well. I mean, hats off to Local, hats off to Vivid and their genetics, Amaze, like all these groups who are great growers, and it's really competitive, and you have less variables to control that flower because once it's grown, all you can kind of really do is cure it and trim it, right? You can't extract it and manipulate it to any degree. So I'm excited for the flower to start hitting its peak of its potential as well. But I still think it's core to the business. It's core because without that flower, you don't have the extractions. You don't have the yielders and resin or rosin. You don't have the flavor profiles with that. It doesn't give those artists a chance to paint on that canvas, right? And so I think the manufacturing side gets the most recognition, but the core of Vibe still is the cultivation, and they always work hand in hand. Every department is always impacted by the other one. To answer your other part of your question, what product lines am I surprised that possibly are getting traction that I wouldn't have expected? I thought, once we released a distillate cart and maybe some gummies and some other products that it would move slower. Why? Like usually dispensary purchasers and patients they're used to the brands that sell already. I already know I like this vape cart. I already know I like this gummy. I'm loyal to it. I don't know, it's new and things like that. But the one feature that I didn't underestimate, I knew it was going to be a factor, is I'm pretty sure Vibe is the only company in Missouri with one brand. We only have Vibe Cannabis, and I don't have any plans to ever make another brand. And so the focus was always or sub-brand. The focus was always to make this one brand good. So anything we put our name on, it instilled patient confidence. And so I think the distillate carts, when we first launched them, they went way faster than I expected because one, we offered good value at a good price point, but people knew the quality of Vibe. They were willing to try it, but then they also knew the Vibe brand name. So it's kind of like all those things that the cultivation team worked on, the extraction team, all the hash hole team, all of that reputation. When we made a simple product, arguably as a distillate cart, people wanted them because I kind of compare it to like, hey, you can make the $300 Travis Scott Nike Jordans, right? But people still want the $70 Jordans, right? So in those types of products, they're still Jordans and they want to wear them. And we treat every product as respectful because some people like the carts, right? Distillate carts or solventless or gummies. Everybody has a different preference and need and a different budget. And so we try to do those things where I think that reputation helped those SKUs move faster in an already competitive market, right? Because that market's generally not going to grow. It's just consumers are going to vote with their dollar a little bit differently.
I will say from a patient standpoint and from a consumer standpoint, while I love flower and I love live resin and live rosin and all those things, my day-to-day stuff most of the time is distillate because sometimes I don't want or can't handle the entourage effect. I just need that like consistent dosage moment, which is the easiest way to get that is to filter everything out and just go with distillate.
So that's this great thing about cannabis products. There is a different type of product for the different moment, right? So when you're with friends, the hash hole is great, right? When you want to relax, maybe go to bed, you could use a gummy, right? If you want to really experience the flavor of things and the effects and relax with your glass or your Puffco, you got to concentrate, whether it's resin or rosin, right? And get every aspect of it. Or if you need something convenient, discreet, on the go, you have vape cart, whether that's distillate or resin, all are great options, right? So I think at the end of the day, it's still the same kind of medicinal value and the effects and the flavors that you kind of want, and it's just it's a different type of product that solves that purpose. For me personally, I like all the above. I don't the gummies don't sit. I don't react to the gummies as well, so I've got to be careful with those. But the solventless side is definitely it's a different body. It's a body high more than a head high, and so patients are actually kind of surprised that effect is kind of different when they experience them, and then their palates and preference changes as well. But all I can say is that the product types that the operators are creating here in Missouri have been great, and I still think there's more to come. So the market's only kind of halfway there.
That's super interesting. Very unique indeed. I right before this, I was talking to Brandon. I go, do they not have any sub brands? Like,
Yeah.
and now to know, yeah,
Yeah.
do not. And I don't know anybody else that does either.
Yep.
That's very unique. And that kind of goes exactly with, how you guys run your business. We, towards the end of these interviews, me and Brandon love to ask, what is in your rotation? Yep. So what are you listening to right now? Is it, what are you vibing on right now? Seriously.
Yeah. So usually I think we all can kind of relate to this, right? Usually when you're really jamming out, it's what's in your car and like you're on your way to work, right?
Yes.
And then you're free to sing and do whatever you kind of want in that. So for me, it's kind of really all above. In terms of music, there's really two types, good and bad, right? And in the same way I kind of relate my music to the way I dress too. So I like to wear these clothes for work, but then I wear business casual yesterday with meeting for folks. But then when I'm riding my lawnmower, my John Deere, I'm wearing the John Deere clothes, right? So for music, it's kind of very similar. So I've got going right now because I've got twins, right? So I also got to have censored stuff in the car when I pick them up. So what's been on my radios more has been, Maroon 5 kind of playing for them, as well as they like a little bit of The Neighborhood, which is kind of more of a emo rock group, that kind of broke up. Hopefully they'll get back together. But I really kind of listen to anything that's it sounds good or random. That I subscribe to Amazon Music, so they'll just kind of play random stuff. This morning, this is how diverse we are, right? Or how I am. This morning, I played Keith Sweat, Twisted, on Amazon while I was getting breakfast, right? Because I heard the song the other day. I'm like, oh man, that takes me back to 7th grade. Alexa, play that, right? So, and I wasn't even expecting to play that, right? So it's almost a lot of this music that has that nostalgia. Third Eye Blind, 9 Inch Nails. Country I'll listen to if it's on the radio. I won't go out of my way to listen to it, but it's really just anything that sounds good or what's vibing. We've got stuff playing all over the place all the time, but anything that kind of makes you feel good. How about you guys?
Well, before we answer, how old are your girls?
So they're 6.5. They'll tell you 6.5, right? That half matters.
Sure. Oh yeah.
So if they don't already know, you should have them check out Galantis.
Okay.
It's kind of an EDM, dance DJ type band, but all of their crossovers and all of their different type of stuff is so poppy and so fun that my daughter, who's a little bit older than them, Galantis has been her favorite band for like 3 years now.
I'll have to get them involved. I will say, they're kind of like embarrassed when they want me to play a song. They don't want to admit, like, Daddy, can you play this song? Like, oh, you like that song, right? And they're like, yeah. Mm-hmm. So they know Daddy's got good taste in music.
have them check it out organically.
Yeah.
Tim, what's in your power plays right now?
Well, if we're talking about daughters right now, I took my daughter to see this band a couple weekends ago called Empire of the Sun.
Oh, they're great. Yeah.
I'd heard of them before and everything, and I'm like, okay, I'll go with you. And I was like, holy cow, what a freaking performance! It was so artsy, and we left there, and I go, hey, you cannot give me crap about how weird my bands are, because that was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. But sonically amazing. Like it was a unbelievable performance for a band that I literally knew nothing about.
I'm sad I missed that.
And
where'd they play?
They've created some of the
St. Louis
biggest
Music Park.
tracks.
Okay. Oh yeah.
They've created some of the biggest tracks for some of the biggest artists in the last 10 years or so, and half the people don't realize that it's a sample of basically an entire Empire of the Sun track.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, they're amazing. I'll give a plug, unrelated plug is I went to see Incubus in Chicago on their tour because they weren't in St. Louis yet. They're going to be here, I think, in July. Amazing show.
Chaffetz.
They play the whole album of Morning View, start to finish.
I'll be there.
Get tickets if you can go.
I'll be there.
The other thing is, I think there's another festival coming up in August. Is it Tacos and Tequila? A lot of hip hop artists, Ti, some other folks as well. I'm actually going with a patient. So somebody that I met with, one of our first customers at Vibe. I was at a pop up back in August 2022. Because the thing with Vibe is we don't forget, right? So this person, I interact with him, I text with them, and I said, hey, we've had trouble connecting because I've been so busy, and he's been busy taking care of his family. I said, hey, why don't you find a concert that we can go to? I'll get the tickets. And he picked that one. So we're going in August. So we'll have some time to spend together. So that one should be fun as well. Yeah.
That's great.
If you guys enjoy Incubus, while Chaffetz Arena is great,
Yeah.
make the drive to Lake of the Ozarks and see them at the Ozarks Amphitheater in an outdoor venue in August.
Oh yeah.
I think I'll have to go to that.
And if you guys go, I will join you.
Yep.
Yes.
A memorable concert I went to last year was on 420 in Kansas City. 311 was there at Grinders. And it was like they went out of the
awesome.
I think it's like a tradition for them. I think they go to Kansas City on 420 and play often because it was like off the map for them on their tour. And I was like, oh yeah, seeing that. Yeah. So yeah. But awesome. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah. Thank you, Jonathan. This was great. So Vibe Canna is where everybody can go, right?
Yep.
Vibecanna.com. Yep.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate you joining us. We both got to nerd out on the data side of stuff. I love hearing how you make these decisions when it comes to business decisions and marketing and branding and new products and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate you giving us your insight there. So thank you for joining us, buddy, and have a great rest of your week.
Yeah, too. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.